Hi everyone, it's Paul. In this clip we're going to look at squamous cells. These are the most commonly seen cell type in cervical samples. They vary depending on what part of the epithelium they have been removed from. And here you can see a field of all three types. This is a superficial cell from the very outermost layer. It has a dead pycnotic nucleus. This is an intermediate cell, same size, but it has a more slightly larger nucleus that has more open chromatin, and then so it has just a slightly higher NC ratio than these two here, which are quite a bit smaller, are parabasal cells. This is a mixed field here. Again, the orange cells are superficial, these blue ones intermediate cells. The intermediate cells aren't always blue and the superficials aren't always orange, but it's an indication that there is more keratinization. You can see the nucleus shrinks down to just a small thing, whereas in the intermediates we have a more finely granular, even chromatin that I'll show you under high power in a minute. So they're superficials over there. So you can see that all of these cells have quite a lot of cytoplasm, so it's a low NC ratio. The NC ratio is higher on these less mature cells. This is a group of intermediate cells, and you can see they're just loosely mashed together, and they're quite uniform in size and shape of nuclei, especially fine even chromatin. Notice the typical squamous cytoplasm. So this is called homogeneous and dense, and it has a really well-defined border to the cell. These cells are showing yellow material in the cytoplasm, and that's glycogen. It's expressed in a large amount in intermediate cells in high progesterone states. So that would be pregnancy and the second half of the cycle. But you virtually never see evacuation. So this is a different field. We'll talk about this pattern more in later videos, but you can see it's predominantly immature squamous cells. So these are ones from the lower layers of the epithelium. You can see they're a little more cohesive, so they're forming sheets where the cells are hanging together a bit more than the superficial and intermediate cells that tend to be like this, more isolated or dispersed in arrangement. So here we have a loose sheet of parabasal squamous cells or immature squamous cells, but on high power you can see they still have a central nucleus and fairly dense, fairly homogeneous cytoplasm with quite a distinct border, so you can easily see where the cell starts and ends. They're forming pretty much a monolayered, what I would call a sheet of cells, and it's reasonably cohesive. So in summary, squamous cells are mainly single when they're mature, but they can form loose sheets and groups, particularly if they're immature. The cells usually in those groups have quite good polarity. We'll talk about that more in later clips. Are usually pretty flat. By that I mean not having much depth of focus. And classic squamous features are a centrally placed nucleus in a round polygonal/oval cell. The NC ratio, as I said, varies, so it's more immature cells have a higher NC ratio, with the nucleus taking up relatively more of the cell. The nuclei are centrally placed, round, oval, with a fairly smooth nuclear membrane. Chromatin is even and fairly fine, so it just looks like someone's shaded in the nucleus with a pencil, if you like. In the immature cells you'll occasionally see nucleoli, but they're not a big feature. And all squamous cells have quite dense, homogeneous cytoplasm with a well-defined cell border, so rarely do they have vacuoles. In summary, the squamous cells that we see present are often mixed, so that it was a mixture of superficial, intermediate and parabasal cells, but that pattern varies quite a lot, and largely that's under the control of two things. One, what areas are sampled, and secondly, the hormonal status of the patient, and we'll talk about that more next week. Immature cells, in addition, are not just derived from the lower third of the stratified squamous epithelium, but as I'll point out next time, are present in areas of squamous metaplasia also.